Welcome to the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. I'm Mike Waters. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by former Syracuse basketball player Michael Gbinije. I talked with Mike about playing for both Jim Boeheim and Mike Krzyzewski, his thoughts on Coach K's retirement, and how he thinks Boeheim will handle his retirement. And pickle juice. We had to talk about pickle juice. Well, welcome back to another edition of the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. And today we've got a great guest. Former Syracuse basketball player Michael Gbinije, Silent G. How are you, Mike?
Oh, man, I like the intro so far. I appreciate it.
Well, you certainly were a fan favorite during your career at Syracuse, and you topped it off with that run to the Final Four. And we're going to talk about that. But, I want us to talk to you right off the bat. Before you came to Syracuse, you spent 1 year at Duke.
Yeah.
And you were coach there was Mike Krzyzewski, and Coach Krzyzewski just retired, called it a career. This past year, walked off the stage there at the Final Four. What were your thoughts on Coach K and his decision to retire at this point?
I think it was that time. It's kind of sad the way he went out, and I was a little conflicted watching the game because when you leave a program, you leave for your own personal reasons. But then at the end of the day, my last game in college was against USC, and they beat me. So I didn't know who to root for in that game. And but yeah, as far as Coach K, there's just a certain level of greatness, at least from my perspective, when it comes to him. And to see him kind of go out against UNC. It just left a bad taste in my mouth personally. It's kind of ironic how things ended for him, but overall, one hell of a coach, one hell of a career. And, it just brought back memories for me of being at Duke, just watching the game.
I never put it together that North Carolina ended K's career in the Final Four, and Carolina also ended your college career at the Final Four. I'm going to go take off this blue shirt. I'll be back. I'm going to get
colors right now.
I'm going to go find something orange just for you. But what was it like for you as a college player to play for two coaches who are both in the Hall of Fame?
It's cool because you get a chance to see two guys who really compete and really get after it in different ways. They're two different people, but I feel like both of them have that drive, that rage inside to really get the best out of their players and try to win every game. With Coach K, I was only there for 1 year, so I didn't get the full experience as I did with Coach Boeheim. But there was times playing, not playing, starter, not starter. He treated everybody the same. He expected greatness out of all of them. Even if it was a practice or a game, the situation just didn't matter. He was always very, what's the word? I don't want to use the word militant, but he was very narrow, focused minded. And I think it just carried over to his players and his organization. With Coach Boeheim, there's obviously greatness there. I just felt like I was able to be myself on the court. And overall, I had a good career at Syracuse, but I think he was a big part of it.
Back in those days, it's different now with the transfer portal. But back when you transferred, Syracuse had not taken a lot of transfers up until then. Only a few, like a Wes Johnson, maybe Leo Routens, a Ryan Blackwell. Jim reached out to Mike Krzyzewski to learn about you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He told me that I think I came during the summer. We were playing pickup. Syracuse, we were playing pickup. And I don't think I had a good game. I was playing pick or whatever, but he basically told me to the side and was like, hey, I talked to Coach K about you. But he didn't even tell me anything afterwards. I was just kind of what you hear? But they talked, and the fact that he took me after talking to Coach K, I guess Coach K had good things to say.
When you transferred, you made the decision to transfer from Duke after the 2012 season. Syracuse is in the Big East. Would you have transferred to Syracuse a year later when you would have known that they were going to join the ACC?
It's kind of funny how that worked out. I was able to kind of take advantage of the rule just because if you transfer in conference, you lose your eligibility. But then I transferred to a team that's transferring into the conference. So I don't know, it just worked out for me. But I always wanted to play in the Big East. Growing up, I was a Big East fan. with all the teams and how loaded it was, but it kind of dissolved over the years. But yeah, I was always a Big East fan. And then once I found out that like I had the opportunity to go back to the ACC without losing my year eligibility, it kind of made things better.
So in joining Syracuse and the season you sit out, because back then you had to sit out as a transfer, that's Syracuse's last year in the Big East. So your redshirt sophomore year, Syracuse is now in the ACC, which means you got to go back and play Duke at Cameron. What was that like for you, especially with the Cameron Crazies?
Playing in a Syracuse uniform at Duke is probably like one of my best like feelings as a player. Just the hostility of the Duke fans, like being cheered for crazy, and then being rooted against crazy. It was just a good environment to be in. But I was very nervous my junior year. I mean, my first year coming into Cameron in the Syracuse uniform, I was very nervous, like shaking as I'm getting sucked into the game type of deal. But over the year, especially my senior year, it's just a level of comfort that just came with it.
You know, those first couple trips back to Cameron, did you ever look in the stands and say somebody like, wait a second, you were in my English class. Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah. Whole student section. I think in Cameron, they had one side of the court, just all student sections. And I was able to kind of, as I'm taking the ball out, you know, recognize or see some people and really just, you know, just try to block them out while I'm playing the game. But I did recognize a lot of people in the stands.
Now, Duke basketball players have to, your dorm is on the opposite side of campus with all the other freshmen, right? Was that still was that rule in place when you were there?
Yeah, like I was literally amongst other freshmen. You know, my roommates were basketball players, but other than that, like I was in the dining hall, like in the room, the hallways, the dorms, like all with freshman students.
That's a Krzyzewski thing, right? He keeps it that way?
I don't remember. It was kind of just how it was. I guess before I got there, I didn't really ask questions. I just went along with the flow.
Did you form any friendships with any of the Duke players or even a Duke student that, you know, they're still around today in your life?
I just played Quinn Cook in the GLeague not too long ago. You know, we talked after basketball stuff, not basketball stuff. He was my roommate my freshman year. So there's been some relationships, some students, you know, not as big name profile guys, but that I talked to recently as well.
Now, your dad, Frank, was a pretty good soccer player, played soccer in college.
Yeah.
How come you went to basketball? Did you ever play soccer?
First of all, like me and him are two different heights, two different builds. He's more solid. I'm more tall and lean. I don't even think he's like 6 foot. I'm like 6'6". But also, you know, he grew up in Africa and moved over towards college. I was born in the States. And so it's just two different cultures, two different body types. And I don't know, I just gravitated to basketball more.
Yeah, about the only 6'6" guys you see on a soccer field are in goal.
Yeah. Definitely over the height average.
You know, we mentioned that transfer portal, and kids these days can transfer. They don't have to sit out. When you transferred from Duke to Syracuse, you did sit out. Was that a bad thing, or did that help you? Or did you look back on it and go, man, I wish I could have played right away?
During it, I wish I could have played right away. But what it did give me the chance to do is kind of learn the system, learn the zone. And at the time, I wasn't a point guard. And so it helped me like kind of develop some point guard skills without like being thrown into the fire and pretty much just like not being good. I spent the whole year working with GMAC. We did a lot of ball handling stuff. So I kind of transitioned into point guard. But I guess that 1 year of not playing in actual games, like I benefited from it.
Yeah, your redshirt sophomore year, so the first year you're eligible to play at Syracuse, you're coming off the bench in that role. But that was the team that started 25-0, right?
Yeah, we're balling. Tyler and his team. The regular season we had was probably the best regular season I've been a part of. You know, our postseason wasn't as we thought it would. Our postseason didn't go as if we thought it would with how good we were during the regular season, but there was a lot of roller coasters on that one.
Well, why didn't that team do better at the end of this? After that 25-0 start, It was kind of a struggle down the stretch. And then, of course, the second round loss to Dayton. What happened?
What happened? Who knows? I didn't really think about it too much. But I guess just being in the game of basketball for so long, you see it with the NBA sometimes. It's like teams that go through that adversity, it can either tear you down or it can literally like make you stronger. And I think the regular season was kind of like a cakewalk. And there were teams that really challenged us, like Ennis had to hit a shot from half court just to win a game. But when you're winning games and you're just winning it like nonstop, sometimes you get that confidence or that lack of fear that you could lose. And I think it's important to have the confidence and the fear at the same time because it keeps you grounded.
I got to ask one question. One more about that season. Your first trip back to Duke and Cameron. CJ Fair drives baseline. Rodney Hood comes over.
It was a block for sure.
It was a block.
That's where you're going. Yeah.
All right.
But it's one of those things, like if you take a charge in Cameron Indoor Stadium, you're probably going to get the benefit of the doubt, even if you're moving or not. Yeah, I hadn't talked to somebody who had so many conversations about this play, but of course I'm biased, so what did you see? What did you think?
In the moment, I'll be honest. In the moment, I had a terrible vantage point. I was over on the sideline on the wing, which would have been the worst place in the world. But I've seen the video since. Mm-hmm. CJ was gathering and going up. That's a block.
Yeah. I've seen the replay a billion times after the game. I had to make sure. It was a crazy call.
What was your vantage point of Coach Boeheim?
Throughout my whole career? No.
Right then, the CJ gets called for the charge, and of course, Coach Boeheim goes crazy and gets the 2 technical fouls and gets tossed. Where were you then, and what did you see? And
if I remember correctly, I can't remember if I was on the court or not, but if I remember correctly, I think I was on the bench. And so I'm like sitting on the right side of him. I'm looking down at the bench, and I'm just seeing him take his coat off. I'm seeing the assistants, if I remember correctly, try to get up and like keep his coat on, try to calm him down. But of course, what happened. So he's gone. I think Coach Hop took over, right, for the rest of it.
He had 10 seconds.
Yeah, he had 10 seconds to coach. So that was a wild last minute of the game.
The next season, 2015, it's a tough year. That was the year where, and I think it was in January or early February, the school announces they're going to take that self-imposed ban and not go to tournament. What was that like for you guys to basically, in my opinion, that kind of ends your season whenever you say that?
Yeah. It was one of those things where I can only speak for myself. I felt bad for rocking Christmas. That was the only thing that really weighed on me mentally, because I was also his roommate, and we knew each other since high school. And to see him have such a good senior year, I feel like he was very dominant. But then at the end of the day, it was like, once this regular season is done, we're done, So it was kind of weird. Because what are you playing for? But that's the only thought of mine. Because at the time, I didn't think I was leaving. So I was like, I get another year after this. But that was the only thought that came to mind for me. It wasn't really a distraction during the season, just because, you got enough plate on your table, studying books and all that stuff. I would just focus on basketball at that point.
That's the season where Jerry McNamara really starts working with you on your point guard skills in practices. Yeah. It always seemed like it was designed for that next year, but that year did Jerry or Coach Boeheim talk to you then about, we need to work on your point guard skills because you're the point guard your senior season?
Honestly, that wasn't really the conversation. It was one of those things where Jerry was just, I call him G-Mac. It's weird for me to call him Jerry. G-Mac, me and him just we really got after it, whether it was practice or post-practice workouts. I think just the nature of just working hard, because I always knew he was going to bring it to our guard groups when we switch up bigs, forwards, and guards. Yeah. And so I had to be ready. And but as far as playing the point guard spot, I had talks with all assistant coaches and the head coach of what to expect, what not to do when I'm on the court, make sure, my responsibilities and everything. But it wasn't really a talk hey, you're going to be point guard. It kind of just happened. But the skill work and the preparation behind the scenes, I think, what was got me ready.
Of course, that senior season, the next year, you do take over. You're kind of the de facto point guard that year. I think you averaged like over 4 assists a game, even while you're also one of the team's leading scorers. What was that like to be 6'6", to be at the point guard position, and basically it's a position that you haven't played that much at all in your career?
It was a good feeling, just because when you're at the point guard spot, you really dictate everything, at least offensively, right? Like, it starts with you, especially if you're like on the ball. Like, some point guards, they get off a bit. Like, you got point forwards nowadays, but in my situation, I was the point guard. And so it's like, whatever play we're running, unless coach calls something from the sideline, I'm choosing. You're choosing, like, it just starts with you. And so it comes with a level of responsibility, but it also, like, it's good to know that, like, you can dictate and control certain aspects of the game.
That team lost 4 of its last 5 regular season games. And then you go to the ACC tournament and you lose to Pitt in your very first game there. So you've lost 5 out of 6 going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Not exactly a team that anybody's going to predict is going to go to the Final Four. What was happening at that point in the season? Do you remember what the team's kind of overall attitude was down the stretch there and then going into the tournament?
Yeah, I'll say this. We had a fun year, like not even counting basketball. I think Tyler Lydon was on that team, Trevor Cooney. Like, we just had a lot of guys who just enjoyed laughing and joking. And so, it's never a good look when you lose games to, like, be laughing and joking. Like, when we lose games, especially during that time period, in the locker room on the court, you feel it. No one's happy around. But the next day, we were so quick to just brush things off and get it going again. And I think that kind of helped carry over, like, being ready to play despite losing the 5 out of 6 that you talked about.
That's the year that Coach Boeheim serves the suspension.
Yeah.
He wasn't around for 9 games and I forget how many days. What was that like for you guys?
It was weird. Just because he's such an icon, and he's an icon across the country with college basketball. But on top of that, he is, I don't know, he's just a big part of our everyday schedule. Like, the vibe changes when he walks in. So we could be on the court, just joking around, laughing. But as soon as Coach Boeheim hits the court, like, the whole scene just changes. Everybody's like, okay, what's he going to say? Like, the anticipation is real. And to have that just taken away on a day-to-day basis, you kind of at first like, okay, well, what do we do? You just kind of looking around and, like, trying to figure out what's next.
It's interesting. We can take some of our listeners here in behind the curtain. At Syracuse practices, there's your video. There's Michael again. At Syracuse practices, Coach Boeheim doesn't usually get there 20 to 30 minutes early. He comes in and it's pretty close to start time. A whistle blows and you guys all run to over where he is, and there's like a circle around Coach Boeheim. Yeah. And sometimes it's a minute and then you guys go off to your stations, and other times it could be 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you're there, you're like, man, you wish you could hear what he's saying for, is he, getting on them? Is he blasting them? Is he, but you're right. He sets the tone when he walks onto the floor, right?
Yeah. To piggyback on that, like, you don't even know sometimes if he's going to come down at 4 on the dot, 4:02, 4:03. Sometimes it's 3:57. So, like, it's always when you're around that 4, you start looking over your shoulder. You start looking up at the office. Is he there? Like, what's going on? It doesn't matter where you're at in the court. You could be in the weight room, in the bathroom, in the locker room, on the court somewhere. When that horn goes off, everybody goes to the same spot every single day to hear what he has to say. So you never know. He kind of keeps you on your toes with
that. So he returns, and it was a tough.
Mike, give me 1 second. I got to charge this real quick. I don't want it to die on us.
We do not want to lose Michael Gbinije in the middle of the podcast. We're pulling back the curtain here. We're breaking the fourth wall.
Switching gears, new location.
All righty.
All right, we're ready.
All right, wait a second.
Sorry, interruption. Let's carry on.
You look like you are now sitting in a locker.
I am. I am in my locker room at OKC Blue.
The OKC Blue, the G League, and you spent this past season with them.
Yeah, correct.
All right, so the season's over, right? You're working out right now?
Yeah, right now, just strength training. Trying to figure out what my next move is going to be, whether it's overseas, G League again. That's been like the day-to-day for me right now, Oklahoma.
You have spent time in both the G League for a few seasons, a couple different franchises. Mm-hmm. You've spent time overseas, right? In Germany?
Yeah.
When a player
Lithuania.
In Lithuania and Germany. A player in your position, what goes into that decision as to, where you're going to try to go?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky because, one, I feel like the NBA is a young person's league. And so the older you get, sometimes you just feel like you're losing like the NBA interest. Mm-hmm. But who knows, right? Because you got some people that come overseas. I still have aspirations to go to the NBA or get back in it, I should say. But yeah, I guess the factors are you kind of just got to determine like what kind of deals are you getting overseas, like finance-wise, your situation in the G League. Because G League basketball style of play is totally different from overseas style basketball. And like even the NBA is kind of a little different than G League as well. So like all three leagues are like playing a different style of basketball.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the G League and Europe?
The G League, you're trying to score as fast as possible. Like rarely ever will the ball like be in a player's hands or in a team's hands with like 6 seconds left on the shot clock. Like it just doesn't happen. Like people are always trying to score right away. Like as soon as you get off half court, especially it's a side to side. There's no transition. Like very rarely where you just have an up and down game. Like they really have to execute in half court.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy your time over there in both Lithuania and Germany?
Germany, yes. The style of play was I was able to kind of come in and impose my will just athletically. I was at one point in the league one of the top scorers, and my team didn't really do that good. I think we was at the bottom of the league for the majority of it. That was like a crazy experience and stuff. I had like 4 head coaches, but overall individually, I did pretty well over there.
I did want to ask you a couple questions, though. I know the listeners are going to want to know. The Virginia game in the Elite Eight in Chicago, you guys are down, I think it was 14 or points. And, of course, 14 points against Virginia probably feels like 30.
It does.
What went into that comeback?
They just weren't prepared. A lot of people I guess it's easy to kind of say, oh, we did this, we did that. No, they dropped the ball. We kind of like just brought some pressure. And I guess when we came out the zone, they just did not know or did not expect us to do so. Yep. And they just lost their composure. And once we kind of brought the lead down and got close, then we got confidence back, and then we kind of just ran with it. But that was their game that they lost.
Really now?
Yeah.
Okay. I've heard Coach Boeheim at halftime told you guys you were going to win. Yeah,
he did. Yeah.
At halftime.
Coach Boeheim is a stone cold killer, Mike.
Do you think he really believed that, or do you think he was trying to make you guys believe it?
I had no idea. If I had to guess, maybe try to make us believe it. Sometimes when he's saying stuff, you don't know where it's coming from. Like, you don't know if that's how he feels or he's playing mind games. Like, with Coach Boeheim, sometimes he's telling us stuff and we just got to take it for what it is.
After that game, there is an amazing picture of you over on the Virginia bench. And I think it was their point guard. I think it was London Parantes. And you went over and you're consoling him.
Yeah.
What made you go over there? Take me through that post game.
He's a player that I respected, and in all our games versus him, he made my job difficult. Just being at the top of the zone, guarding him, he just made my life hard. And so, like, even though my team beat his, I couldn't just like see him going through it and acknowledge the fact that like, because we were both point guards as well. Like he's guarding me, and so I couldn't see him struggling when at times I feel like he did get the best of me. And so it'd be one thing if like, you know, I just dominated him, but like I didn't feel that way. I felt like he at times really like got the better of me, but it just my team won, and so I couldn't like. I don't know. I just felt like I had to say something to him.
That's cool. That's really cool. I know a lot of people remember that moment. You know, before I let you go, one more thing.
Yeah.
Are you still drinking pickle juice?
No, those days are over. Those days are over. It was a fad. It was a college thing.
You know, there were times, and for those who don't know or don't remember, Mike's senior year, he never came off the floor. He averaged like 40 minutes a game, and supposedly pickle juice replenished your fluids, or I don't.
Yeah, apparently, like it was just it was an electrolytes thing. Like I was always sweating out electrolytes, and that was like a good way to put it back in me, like quick and fast.
Now, I don't know if you know this, the reporter in me who's always skeptical, I thought that there was a good chance that you were just spoofing us, getting us to believe that you were drinking pickle juice, and it was like that when you came out one time with a pickle jar, that it was like lemonade or something. It was.
Oh man, no, it was actually pickle juice.
All right, that's what I wanted to hear. It was actually pickle juice.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't even know how that got started, but it was a thing. Yeah, it definitely was a thing.
Well, you'll always be remembered for the guy who had the pickle jar in the locker room, and it must have worked. You played forever, right? You never came off the floor your senior year.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if it did help me, I should probably pick that pickle juice can back up if it truly helped me.
Well, I couldn't let this podcast go without asking you about that again. So, Mike, listen, this has been a lot of fun. It's been a long time since you and I had talked. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Good luck. And good luck with the next season and wherever your career takes you next year. We'll be watching.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That's Michael Gbinije, everybody. Thank you for listening again here on the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast.